So a couple of days ago, I met my son in Commerce, Texas, to buy a truck from an old friend. It's an old truck too. The truck's actually older than the boy, so he's going to have fun trying to rebuild it and get it all ready. But he was able to drive it home for $1,000 barn find. Not a bad deal. But while we were there, my friend introduced me to an old friend of his that I'd never met before, a guy by the name of Paul Voss, and we stood there randomly in the middle of nowhere just having a conversation, and it was amazing how many people he knew that I knew. And I've tagged Dorothy Bonavillian on here because she's a John Maxwell leadership coach and has traveled around the world doing leadership training and ministering to people and leading others. And that was the connection that this guy in the middle of nowhere 2 hours from home and I had, was another connection from way back in his past and back in my past that we've all crossed paths before. I bring that up because I want you to think about what seem to be random connections in your mind and the impact they have on you every day. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. As you know, this is the beginning of the 90-day tour where we'll be helping veterans get connected to income opportunities, helping single moms get connected to income opportunities, speaking in schools and speaking in public arenas. I'll be traveling with a group called the Opportunity Centers of America. And part of what we do is short haul and long haul, what you might call hotshot trucking. So we load up a truck, we make a delivery, we come back. Sometimes we're out 2 or 3 days, and sometimes we're out weeks. And over the next 90 days, we'll have a driver in the seat. And so I have a captive audience who gets tortured with the same kind of stuff you hear every day for 5 minutes, only they get it for 5, 6, up to 11 hours. And so one of those trips yesterday had a new driver in the truck with me. It was only his second trip, and the first time he actually got behind the wheel. But as we were driving, we were talking about how the things in your brain affect your body, how you can convince yourself that you're sick. You know that. You've experienced that. Or how you might have a bad experience from the past, that there's something that triggers that bad experience. And when the thought comes to mind, you feel just like it's happening again, even though it hasn't happened for years. And see, sometimes it's a person or a name or a place, like when I ran into Paul Voss in Commerce, Texas, in the middle of nowhere. And I told him I was part of the John Maxwell team. And he's like, I know somebody else who's part of the John Maxwell team. And he mentioned a name. And I'm like, yeah, we know each other. And he's like, that's amazing. And I said, it's a small world. He said, no, it's a tiny, tiny world. They're the tiny, tiny world inside your mind, your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. Sometimes they're thinking different things. But the connection between your subconscious mind and events that have happened in your past that terrified you or made you excited, they still live in there. And when they're triggered by a name or a face or a smell or a sound, all of the chemicals and the hormones in your body that were there when the moment happened, they come back. And sometimes we don't realize that because consciously we're thinking about making dinner, or we're thinking about driving down the road, or we're thinking about this conversation we're in, but subconsciously these relationships still exist. Paul and Dorothy may not have seen each other in years, but the mention of the name, the mention of the connection, and suddenly this flood of emotional excitement comes back, and he's like, oh, I know her. She's so right. That's the same thing that's happening in your subconscious mind. And that relationship between the hormones and the chemicals and your emotional feeling, they can be intense. As this guy and I were talking, I said, sometimes those negative thoughts come up, and you don't even realize you're thinking them. But they can lead to panic attacks and stress attacks, and you can find yourself debilitated by these. And only moments later, his wife called and said, I'm on the way to the ER. I feel like I'm having a heart attack. But the doctor said they can't find anything wrong. And she said, I think I'm just going to go home and take a bubble bath. And he said, I'm just sitting here talking to this guy about the idea that our thoughts can impact our physical body. And it sounds like you're thinking about something that you're not aware you're thinking about. And maybe that's stressing you out. And then she started to tell him some of the things that have been going on in her head. And I think I would be a little stressed out just from the stuff that she's dealing with. I want you to be consciously aware of the thoughts that are going on in your mind. I want you to choose good thoughts for the thoughts that you consciously think. And I want you to be alert and aware to those connections that seem so random, like halfway across the state, years of time and space, but a name, a smell, a sound triggers you to go back and think and feel like you did 20 years ago, whether it's good or bad. I want you to take those thoughts and bring them up to the surface for a minute and go, hang on, do I really want to think like that? Do I really want to feel like that? Because it is your choice. And how you feel today may be directly related to the thoughts you're thinking in your subconscious mind and not your conscious mind. I'm J Loren Norris for Leading Leaders Podcast on Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.